So today we have Jim. Jim is from Click, our insurance company. He'll explain who he is and why he's here today, but we thought we'd switch up a little bit. He offered to come give some training to our drivers, monitors, everybody who works in our transportation fleet. So we took him up on that offer today. So I know you probably get tired of seeing some of the other presenters, so brought you something different, a different perspective. And this is our insurance cooperative. So when we look at insurance, I look at it because I'm responsible for the risk management side. So I always try to mitigate risk and try to reduce it. I know, like one time I told Matt, if we got to hit something that's not a car, it's a trash can, as I can replace those for the cheap. So when he talks to you about some of these things, I'd ask you, if you have questions, I don't know if you want to be interrupted, but let's have questions. I know we got a time constraint, but let's certainly look at it from the insurance side, because that's the side I deal with in my job. So when we talk about the fleet, insurance, and safety, those all roll up underneath my office as well. And I put all that onus on Matt to make sure you're trained correctly, we do the right things, and we have our mind in the right place. So with that, I will turn over to Matt, and he'll break the ice with something. Probably work.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's a perfect month to have our guest speaker, as it is School Bus Safety Month. The actual week that they observe this on is October 19th to the 25th, so that's second to last week of October. They got out the school bus illegal passing survey from last year that you guys did. Across the U.S., it was 67,258 cars illegally passed in one day. In one day. That's just in a single day. They estimated if you took that over the course of the 180 school year, there would be 39 million illegal passings in one school year. Surprisingly, that is down from last year, where we were at 43 million. Just in Illinois, we had 3,600 in one day. Of those, 3,500 of them were on the left-hand side, meaning your side of the bus. The rest of them were all on the passenger side, on the right, on the door side of the bus. Almost 200 passings on that side. So make sure you guys are staying vigilant as you guys are dropping off, and before you open that door, make sure you are cleared. Important dates, remember that the 9th and 10th, if you have a Geneva route only, make sure you check your calendars. Geneva has school improvement days this Thursday and Friday. I believe St. Charles is the same way, and a couple of other districts, so make sure you know if you've got school or not Thursday or Friday. Our first early dismissal day is coming up next month on Friday, November 7th. I know Kelly has started getting the routes ready for you guys, for those of you that are covering routes. And then Veterans Day is Tuesday, November 11th. We are going to do our celebration on that Monday, the 10th, and do a breakfast. And a sign-up sheet will come out here shortly for that. My other update is now escaping me. The parking lot, they are going to be restriping it on Thursday or Friday this week. So Wednesday afternoon, if you have a middle school route, or not a middle school route, if you park in the middle, you are going to be asked to go park at the middle school when you're done with your route. And we will shuttle you back over here. That way we can have an empty parking lot for the last 2 days, so that they can get it all sealed and restriped.
Can we park over there in the morning and bring it in the afternoon, you drive a car over there?
That's fine.
Okay.
Are they striping where the buses are all the way in the back? Are they making parking spots for those as well?
They are striping the curbs, they are striping the center part where you guys park. It'll all be done by the time you guys come back Monday. So all the spare buses, everything's gotta get out of the parking lot.
No, but are they marking the way back? Are they gonna make parking spots for that?
So there's already 2 parking spots along the curb, but there's no additional parking spots along the side. Once we have everything striped on the side and the center, there is enough spots that nothing should be back there other than broken down buses.
Okay,
So nobody should be parking in the way back once we come back next week.
So are we parking in the parking lots over there at,
You'll park in the U like you guys did before. It'll just be for the one day and then that would be it. For the drop off in the morning at the middle schools, I went out there last week to kind of observe it because I know we've gotten there's congestion, this or that. Make sure you guys are pulling all the way around the U before you drop. I saw at both schools, the first however many buses would come in at 8:18, they'd unload their kids. And the next buses would roll in as they're starting to leave, but they wouldn't wait for those buses to leave. They'd just roll up to the next available spot at the top of the U and start dropping. Now you're holding everybody else up that's behind you. Gotta go all the way around. And when you're dropping off in the morning, you do not need to use your stop arm. The kids are dropping off on the curbside. They're not walking in between the buses. They have no reason to be walking in between the buses. But if you are going past another bus, I've seen some of you guys go through the U. It is not a racetrack. You need to go slow. Any other questions on anything at all? Amanda?
Does that mean by us not using our stuff, or does that mean we can pass if we're still unloading or still not?
Yes, you could.
Oh, okay.
The middle school kids have no reason to be walking past your bus into the middle parking lot whatsoever.
So you can't pass that?
You can. That does not mean you shouldn't still pull as far around as you can. That doesn't mean everybody needs to be trying to get to the top of the U so their kids don't have to walk as far as anybody else's. But that should be able to help with some of the congestion. Any other questions?
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna, yeah.
And I've heard people say, like, don't shut off your bus, just get up and do the child check, is that correct? Or just walk your bus, make sure there's no one there?
Yeah. Walk your bus, make sure, you shouldn't be leaving the school without making sure nobody's on there.
But you don't have to shut off your bus.
Correct, you're gonna have to do your child check though once you get back here, but
Right.
yes, walk your bus at the school. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Jim unless there's any more questions. Once Jim's done, don't run out of here. Your committee candidates would like to do a quick little thing at the end here. Jim?
And don't run out once I get started either. So, wait till I'm done before you do that. So, my name is Jim Pitzer, and I have a confession to make. I am a recovering distracted driver. It comes and goes, you know. I know how to drive a car, but it doesn't mean that I'm always as focused as I should be. And I know today I'm not going to teach you guys anything you don't know already. I may have a few stories you haven't heard of, but it's just a good reminder, I think, that we have to make sure we're focused when we're driving. And there's a safety DVD out there called Miracle on the Hudson, Prepare for Safety. And it's based off the pilot that landed on the Hudson River back in 2009. He speaks through half of the DVD, and the rest of it is a narrator talking about safety and how that applied to what they did on the river that day. And a couple of things he talks about in there is doing things the way you've been trained, doing things the... You okay? Well, I thought you were choking. Okay, all right. Doing things the way you've been trained, doing things the right way every time. And the last thing he closed with was passenger. Okay. He said, be aware of the trains. You might not be able to hear me, but I talk pretty loud. So the last thing he closed with was, be prepared for the unexpected. I'm sure everybody in this room could share a story about others around you that appear to be distracted drivers. You know, it's not you guys that I'm concerned about, it's the people that you don't know. You know, if you're driving a bus down the road and you got a car in the right lane next to you that keeps kind of getting close to the midline, and then they get back in their lane, you know, are they wanting to come over? Do they have someone in the back seat they're talking to? Are they on their phone? Whatever. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of your surroundings. So most of us drive. Now, I had trouble last night. You don't have to necessarily try to read the small letters. I had trouble last night getting my notes at the bottom, so I just put some notes for myself there in the small letters. But most of us drive every day, and you guys have what I think is a challenge of driving two types of vehicles every day. You come to work in your automobile, then you're in a bus, and then you're in your automobile, and then in the afternoon you're in a bus again. So you have two different things you're dealing with. I appreciate what you guys do. One thing I wanted to mention to you, maybe just a mental thing you could do, maybe you do this already. I have companies that do something called a job hazard analysis. And sometimes they actually have their employees do this every day when they first come to work. No matter what their job is, they have to go through the steps of that job. Maybe it's a 5-step job, 4-step, 6-step, whatever. And then they sign off saying, I have read or reminded myself of the steps I must follow to do this job. I think I would be tempted, if I was trying to do both a bus and an automobile, when I get in the bus in the mornings, maybe you do this, to just say to myself, okay, here's this, I have to do this, here are the things I must follow to drive these students around safely. So it's already fresh in your mind, instead of, you know, when you get to work, when you got in your car this morning to come to work, you probably get in your car, start the car, put it in gear, and you take off without even thinking about it. You know, but sometimes we get complacent and we're not thinking about some of those exposures that are out there on the road. And there are plenty of exposures out there around you. Again, I'm sure you guys have stories of people that we're not thinking, they're distracted, they're maybe swerving across the midline, turning without a turn signal, whatever it is. People get distracted, and that's something I know you guys watch out for on a regular basis. Now, speaking of the Miracle on the Hudson DVD, I have not come up with a way still to help you guys stay 100% focused on your job. You know, and I tell this when I'm working with a company and they've got a job in a plant or something. But you've got, maybe you've got a spouse who has surgery coming up in a week. Maybe you've got a daughter or a son getting married this week or next month, and you've got things in your mind you're going through that you're thinking about, and maybe you're not 100% focused on driving the bus or driving your car. And I think it goes together. When I talk to companies during safety training, I try to help them to remind themselves that I need to be safe at work, but I also need to be safe at home. Because, you know, I know Geneva, when you leave at the end of the day, they want you doing things safe at home so you're able to come back to work the next day. You know, when you guys leave home in the mornings, there's probably somebody at your home that says, expecting you to come back from work safely at the end of the day. You know, so there are people out there that want you to do it the right way, not just your students, but maybe someone at your house, maybe someone with the district. So it's important that we are focused, and, you know, and you guys, some of you guys have been driving for years, never had an accident, that's great, but the exposures are out there for us. Look at a couple things that maybe some bad habits we developed. So these three here are all true stories, 4 stories. A couple years ago, I had a district bus driver, has dropped all the kids off already at school, coming back to the to the department bus garage, drops a donut on the ground. Instead of just leaving it until they get to a red light or whatever, they're trying to reach down, the 5-second rule, I guess. If I can get it quickly, I can still eat it and then not get too dirty. They go up against the curb. They didn't damage anybody, but hit anybody, but they damaged the tires. They're going up onto a curb. So distracted driving. One of my school districts in Kansas a couple years ago, let's say Matt, it was your position. Matt, his company is driving into work. He comes to an intersection. The lights just turned red. So he's sitting there waiting. And about 3 seconds later, a bus goes zooming past the red light. So Matt gets on his radio and says, do we have a bus on near the intersection of whatever? You caught the last couple of numbers of the bus. They said, yeah, that's so-and-so. They're driving a bus. And so this district had just put in outward-facing and inward-facing cameras because they'd gotten tired of the public always said it's the bus driver's fault, and the bus drivers usually were not at fault. So they put these cameras in so that they could prove our driver was doing the right thing, and it was at the Joe Public out in here. Well, when they got back and looked at the video on his camera, the bus driver, you hear the bus driver say, no brakes, no brakes. And yet the camera facing them, they forgot this, shows them realizing, I've just gone through a red light. They didn't even attempt to hit the brakes. They knew they were in the wrong, and they're trying to cover, yeah, exactly. No brakes, and yet they never attempted to use a brake. So that was another distracted. They're just not paying attention. Luckily no one hit them, but that could have been a real disaster. About a year or so ago, I'm driving down one of the interstates here. Semi-driver has it on his phone, and I can see a tablet or a laptop on his steering wheel. Driving. I'm not sure what he's doing. I kind of pulled into the lane away from him. I didn't want to be, next to him. Probably 10 years ago or so, my niece is down in Texas at a red light in a big pickup. Of course, it's Texas, so she's a pickup. A teenager hits her from behind. He was on his phone texting his friends, and she still has back issues to this day because he was going so fast. It hurt her back and damaged, or probably totaled his car too. But that's just another example, and you guys, like I said, you guys probably see that often. Close calls, again, I know we all have had close calls, and I'm going to tell you my come to Jesus moment here in a few minutes when I realized I need to pay better attention. Sometimes you have a near accident. You think, okay, hopefully you're thinking, what caused it? Did I cause that? Did someone else cause that? I worked in Germany for 6 years, and I'm on the Autobahn. In parts of Germany, the Autobahn has speed limits, and some parts of it has unlimited speed limits. You can go as fast as you want. So one night I'm coming down the Autobahn, and there's a car in front of me, probably 10 car lengths. There's nobody else on the road. And we're going probably 90, 95 miles an hour. And I look down just for a second to grab something out of my seat and look back up, and this guy has his brake lights on. He's swerving like he's missing something. Come to find out, and that once he moved over into the shoulder, I saw a deer taking off. But when I looked up, I could read his license plate. That's how close I was to his car. And that got my attention, like, okay, that was the dumbest thing I'd done at that point. There's been many others since then, not driving, but other things, but that's how quickly it happens, So we think that, we're good, we can grab something, take our eye off the road, and I don't take my eye off the road if there's anybody in front of me these days. I don't do that until I know there's nothing in front of me. I'm going at decent speed, then I may look over here to grab something, but it just happens so fast that, if anybody's ever had a rear end accident and it's been your fault, that gets your attention and it stays with you. That could have been a disaster for me and the other car if I had not looked up when I did. I would have hit that car if I had not looked up after a couple seconds. So again, it's just making sure that we're focused, you know, not thinking about, you know, your spouse's surgery or the wedding coming up, or that red pickup that almost hit you or ran you off the road this morning in your bus. Now you're thinking, I'm gonna look for that red pickup tomorrow when I'm on my route. So stuff like that distracts us, and it's just not a good thing. Distracted driving, a driver is distracted or fatigued. A driver is not focused on the road. Now, fatigue, I understand sometimes we aren't maybe as rested as you'd like to be. I have some companies where someone has a second job. You know, maybe a spouse has lost a job and they've picked up extra hours or whatever. So sometimes we are a little more tired than we would like to be, but we have to make sure that when you're behind the bus, and I know you guys know this, that you're as rested as possible. Some of the types of distractions, visual. You know, how many times you've been driving a bus and there's a car doing something over here, or there's a jogger doing something, or someone on a bike that looks like they're going to come out into the road. That visual sometimes distracts us from what's going on right in front of us. Manual, you know, again, that's reaching down to pick up your water bottle, or a cookie that fell on the floor, something like that. That would be a manual distraction. And then mental distraction would just be, you know, again, thinking about the surgery coming up for your spouse, your parent, your grandkids have a game tonight. You're thinking about that, and I don't mean to make it sound like I never get distracted anymore because of that situation in Germany. I get distracted a lot, but I try to catch myself and try to stay as focused as I can when I'm behind the wheel. So I think we all probably at times have had situations like that where something has distracted us, and it's been fine, but there's always that next time, unfortunately. Being focused on your phone, that's a real temptation, I know, for people. Some companies, I have some districts that tell even like someone who's not a bus driver, maybe the maintenance director who has to go to Home Depot for something, they say turn your phone off, put it on the seat, and then if you need something, pull over, turn it back on, call me, whatever. But people do it different ways, but just being aware that your phone is a distraction. Eating and drinking while we're driving can be a distraction. I left this part on here about the CD players. Anybody have CD players in their car still? Yeah, okay, good. I wish I did, but I've got a stack of CDs at home that I can't use because a lot of the newer cars and rental cars don't have those. But adjusting your radio, I know you guys are doing city driving for the most part. How many in here do field trips or sporting events where you're on the highway? Anybody at all? Okay, 1, 2, couple. Okay, all right. So I got a couple things for you here in a second about that. So just making sure that everything's adjusted while you're stationary is the best way to go. Talking with others in the vehicle. I've been in a car where I've had to tell my brother-in-law to just don't talk to me. He's driving. He keeps looking over and he has a point he's trying to make. And I finally had to say, Jim, you've got to focus. He's also bad when he tries to talk on his hands-free phone. He still is distracted even then. I just said, so I don't even actually get in the car with him anymore. Checking to make sure. Now, I wanted to talk about this GPS thing for a second. I had one of my South Dakota districts just last year, a guy in Matt's position was having to sub-drive. They were short a driver. And he said at that point, our district did not have a good policy in place where when I drop off students, let's say 8 students get off my bus, they didn't have a good policy in place to verify that all 8 of their students have moved away from the bus when it's time for me to go forward. And he says, I'm sitting there in the bus, I've dropped some kids off, and because I'm not used to this route, I'm not moving, but I've got my phone and put my GPS for the next drop off. I'm getting ready to put my phone in the handle, I'm trying to talk, what's the word for that? The spot holder. Thank you, the holder, thank you. Thank you. And all of a sudden, two students are banging on his door and like doing this. Don't move. Well, what happened was one of the students had dropped some textbooks after they got off the bus. Papers flew under the bus because the bus wasn't moving. So the student crawled under the bus. Now, luckily, he had some friends that noticed that, and they're the ones banging on the door. And so he opens the door, what's going on? House, Matt dropped his books and, so close call. But he said, I realized at that point we didn't have a great system in place to verify that everyone is away from the bus until, before I pull out. So 2 years ago, I'm with a district of mine here in one of the suburbs, south side of Chicago. And they did not have a great system in place 5 or 6 years ago. And they were telling me this story. They said, you want a fatality story involving buses? I said, I'm always looking for stories, unfortunately. They said the same thing happens in a residential area. Students get off, student drops his books, papers flew under, the bus wasn't going, so the student crawled under. Now, the students on the bus, later on when they interviewed them, said, we saw him walking back towards the bus, and we're about to say to the driver, don't go, and the driver took off, killed the kid. And the grandmother is on the front porch ready to let him into the house and just witness the whole thing. So that's not driving the bus, but stationary. But I know you guys have a system in place here. Most districts have a great system in place where they can verify that students have moved to whether they're getting to go into a house, getting into a car, walking down the street with their buddies, whatever. But that's something that GPS made me think of those two stories when I was working on that this weekend. Just making sure that all your kids have moved away from that bus before you take off. And then again, also distracting, making sure that before you leave the facility here, that your mirrors are adjusted properly, your seats adjusted properly. There's no reason to trying to be doing that while you're driving. Other things that get us distracted, look in the mirror for some reason, things that might draw our attention on the outside of your bus is accidents, bad drivers. Now, I love school districts and I love bus drivers. I've worked with quite a few bus driver groups over the years. A couple years ago, probably a year ago, I'm driving down the interstate here in the Chicago area. And every single entrance onto the highway has been from the right. There's been no left entrances, or no left exits there. And it's a stretch of 4 or 5 miles, whatever. And I see all these cars in front of me that are getting in the right lane and getting in the left lane, or the middle lane and into the left lane. And I get up there and there are 2 school buses in the left lane going just a little under the speed limit. And there's no exit coming up, but everybody is having to go around. And now, the reason I brought that up is because it could have been a car, could have been a bus, could have been a semi. Anytime someone's in that left lane and they're going slower than what the speed limit was, that's just causing a distraction. Everybody's, having to go around them. Now you got people thinking about that bus driver, thinking, what's he doing? As opposed to focusing on the road and driving safe. So I know you guys don't do that, but I don't know what the deal was that day, but I haven't seen it since, had not seen it before. But just making sure that we're not causing any reason for someone else to be distracted because of what we're doing as drivers. Billboards, things on the side of the road, gets people distracted. A couple years ago, DFW Airport had put these big billboards at the airport showing what terminal for Delta or for American or Southwest or whatever. It was new. They started having so many rear end accidents because people are looking at, okay, where do I go, and slowing down, trying to wait for their airline to show up on the screen. They finally had to remove those because people were being distracted by those billboards there in the middle of the road, the median. So any questions so far? Any stories that you guys want to share? maybe about a coworker sitting next to you that you've seen them be distracted or something? No, okay, all right. So now this, I'm not a mathematician or a scientist or anything that does this. They say using mobile phones takes about 37% of your brain activity while you're driving. They also say being on the phone is like having 2 mixed drinks, alcoholic drinks. That's your driving ability when you're on a phone. That's how much you're distracted. I know even if hands-free, you can still be distracted. And again, I'm telling you not necessarily I know you don't use hands-free here, but again, I want you to think about things you do at home, because again, we want you to be safe at home so you can come back to work the next day and be a good driver here. They say every 2 miles we'll make about 400 observations, which is true if you think about it. And then about 40 decisions. And if we're distracted even by 10%, that's some decisions that maybe that we're not making that we should be making. So, like I said, some of you guys, maybe all you guys have driven for years, never had an accident. But I'm just trying to put that bug in your ear that we still need to be diligent and focused every time, even though you're great drivers. Okay, good driving habits. Before you start your trip, inspect the outside of your bus, your car, tires. I know you have people here that the mechanics have your buses in good condition, but it still might not be a bad idea just to look. Adjust the seat, mirrors, radio, temperature before you get going. I think I've got a note here. I do on this next one here. Also making sure that your lights are working well. Wipers. Okay, I have a district that's fairly close to you guys. And I was there a couple years ago, probably 3 years ago. COVID just was kind of almost over. And I'm in a meeting with the business manager and the maintenance director. And they said, we had an accident in the bus parking lot earlier this year. I said, no one had told me. They said that it was a day where, sometimes in the winter or even in summer, the moisture in the air, the inside of your windshield, you have to kind of wipe it off. It gets kind of a little foggy at times. And so this driver had gotten in the bus and had just cleaned enough to see in front of them. And so they're pulling through the parking lot, not going fast, 10 miles an hour or whatever. But they can't see that there's a driver walking between 2 buses, and they're going to turn right to walk along the driveway to get to their bus. So when this driver is walking and turns out, this driver, because they can't see through the right side of their windshield, clips the shoulder of the guy walking. Knocks him to the ground, and then they realize, they said, oh, you know what, you didn't clean the whole windshield off? He said, no, I was in a hurry. I just kind of did this, and could have been worse, but, so I was telling my wife this story. I said, why would anybody just clean enough to be able to see out their side? 3 or 4 months later, I'm in the car with my wife in the driveway at home, and we're going somewhere, and my windshield has done the same thing. And I made the same mistake. I got a napkin out of my glove compartment, kind of wiped off here. I put it in gear and start to leave the driveway. And she says, can you see out my side of the car? I said, no. Put it in gear, get another napkin out, wipe her side off. I did the same thing. So I know how easy it is sometimes to be focused on something else. So it's just, it's important to make sure that everything, mirrors, seat, temperature, windshield is all in good shape. Any musical devices, again, keep your phone off, keep it out of the reach. What's the policy here? You guys use radios when you're in the car or in the bus?
Yeah.
Radios, okay, great. And that's just handy. Is it on you? Is it on the dash?
On the console.
A console, okay.
Just to our
Okay.
left, just to
Perfect.
our left.
All right, sounds good. Couple more things here. City driving, 90% of all accidents or fatalities are at a stop sign or a traffic signal. Just this morning, I'm coming down, I wasn't familiar with the road. I'm coming through one of the cities between here and Villa Park, and the light's green, and there's a kind of a box truck in front of me, but they stop right as I'm getting out of the intersection, you know, so my tail was just barely out. But I've seen people that do that, you know, try to beat the light, and someone else takes off in a hurry. There's an accident right there. So and I've stopped trying to beat the light because my wife got tired of paying those tickets that come in the mail, you know, when you don't beat the light. Watch other vehicles. Changing lanes is a distraction. You know, they did a survey years ago when I was living in Texas. They had 2 cars on the interstate. One car was tasked with staying in one lane for a 10-mile period. The other car was allowed to do whatever they thought. And when they got to the end of the 10 miles, the car that did all this changing had arrived about 25 seconds earlier than the one who stayed in the same lane. So it doesn't really get you there quicker. But when you have people driving around you, though, and they're pulling out, not using a signal, you know, that's why we got to make sure we're focused, because, you know, they just do stuff like that. City driving, don't speed, avoiding, again, changing lanes too often. And then watching out for pedestrians. Have you guys ever been in a bus and there's someone standing waiting for a bus stop or waiting for the light to change, and they kind of step out thinking it's their turn to go? I had a friend in Texas years ago that killed a middle schooler. She's driving down the road, 4 or 5 middle schoolers on the side of the road. She's just driving, and he jumped out. I don't know if he was, you know, messing with his friends or he got pushed, whatever, but he got out to the road and she hit him, unfortunately. So we don't know what other people are thinking. You know, you know what you're thinking, so you got to make sure, you got to assume almost that someone's going to do something. You know, maybe, you know, take your foot off the accelerator when you're approaching an intersection where you got pedestrians that may jump out in front of you. Sometimes you may be out in a country road or rural setting, watching for slow moving vehicles like tractors or trucks, animals in the road. You guys are far enough out from the city, I think, that do you have any routes that are would be considered non-residential? Okay, all right, so I thought, okay. All right. Just being aware that roads may not be ideal, the lighting may be possible. Let's say it's you're getting back from a field trip and it's January, so it's dark early, and you're driving on darker roads. Just making sure maybe you're slowing down a little bit, making sure you're aware of the possibilities. Vehicles coming out from hidden farm roads is another thing. Okay, so now you're going on a field trip. You're going on to state for a track or for football or whatever, and you're on the highway. Always constantly checking your mirrors. I do this. I drive a lot, and so sometimes you know you're thinking, okay, I just passed Jacksonville, Illinois, and now it's 20 minutes later. You don't recall what happened in the last 20 minutes. So making sure that you're avoiding that hypnosis by checking the mirrors all the time, maybe changing the radio, maybe rolling the windows down, help you stay alert and fresh. You know, if you're on a long road trip, I know you guys probably take stops every once in a while to stretch your legs, to get alert, give your students a chance to go to the bathroom, whatever. I have this is my last slide, second to last slide. I got one more story for you. So back row, I don't know if you can see it back there, back row of the bus is my note. When you guys are going on a field trip or a sporting event, and you're on not the interstate, but you're on the, like a country highway, can't think of any of them around here, but the speed limit's 65 or 70, and you're gonna come to a railroad crossing. You guys ever have that situation? Okay, all right. So, 5 years ago or so, I have schools in Indiana. And one of my districts, just across the border from here, said, we don't use our back row of the bus any longer because of what happened at Winamac. And I said, who's Winamac? And there's a district that had the same thing. 4-lane highway, railroad crossing, and they came to a stop. And they said that a car behind them did not notice that the bus was stopped, hit the back left corner of that bus and killed an 8th grader on the back corner of that bus. So I never heard so he said, so we don't use, if we're gonna come to a stop, we don't use that back row of our bus for students. We put football equipment or basketball equipment or whatever on that back row to avoid having someone right next to the back of the bus. So I found out about a year or so ago what caused that accident with that driver. He wasn't on his phone. He was taking a hoodie off over his head and was blinded for those 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and hit the back of that bus and killed that 8th grader. And so I had, I still got a few minutes, so I had told that story to a couple of my districts that I was working with. And so I was in South Dakota a year ago, and I came back here to a school in Orangeville, Illinois, really, it's about as big as this room. And he said, I thought about you the other day, which is never good when a school district is thinking about their insurance guy. They go, what happened? He said, well, I was watching the news, and there's a district, I won't say who it is, but he said there's a district going to Six Flags Great America, is that what it's called here? Okay, all right. On the interstate, caravan of buses, and there was a car in front of the first bus that comes to a stop. First bus stops okay, second bus stops fine, third bus did not notice that, hits bus number 2, bus number 2 hits bus number 1, bus number 1 hits the car. It took like 14 students and teachers to the hospital, observation, no one was really hurt, but he said, I thought about you because you had just mentioned that to me on your last visit. I said, who was the district? He said the name of it. I said, that's one of my districts. And I had just met with them probably a month or 2 before this accident. And so I got home, called him, I said, by the way, did you guys get a chance to at least think about this back row thing? He said, no, we thought about it, but we had not made a decision. But now that this has happened, we're gonna readdress that and see if it's possible to not use that back row when you're gonna have a chance of having to stop or someone hitting you from behind because you're at a railroad crossing. So I just wanted to throw that out there just for you guys to be thinking about how you protect your students, how often you're on highways that come to a railroad crossing and you got people going 65, 70 miles an hour or whatever. So again, bus driver did nothing wrong. There's a guy pulling a hoodie off over his head. So it's just something to think about. How, I'm always thinking, how can we protect everybody the best way possible? All right, last thing. Tempted to multitask. People say, I can do this, I can do 2 things at once. Maybe not when you're driving a bus, but when you're home again. But you're going back and forth really quickly, You can't do 2 things like that at once. So that's my last slide. I didn't think I would go the full time, but it's like 27 after. So any questions? Again, I'm always open for stories. I know you guys would be open for any stories. Matt, do you have anything you want to share? Bad?
I do have a couple of
Okay.
things. First of all, I want to thank Jim for coming out. So he's part of our insurance cooperative. We've been probably working on this since months ago. I like a couple of things from you, right? So, I'm not just saying this because Jim's here, but if you do see things that we need to improve for safety, we added another parking lot. We're changing this up to school bus only. Please let me know, right? You can send it to myself or Matt. And then also what else we can do to make life better here. I know I can't do anything about the trains. The board won't touch that with money, but I do keep trying to make improvements for everyone's lives here at transportation. With the new lot, I'm guilty myself of walking up what is now the entrance into the new parking lot. Please use the sidewalk in the back door. We'll make sure that's clean. And this back parking lot has to be sloped for draining purposes. So when we get that first ice storm or anything out there, please be careful. We're gonna have to review our maintenance practices that we have there, just to make sure that we change those up. And just be careful. It's gonna be a new experience for us. We're such used to pretty much a flat parking lot. And this is gonna be a little different. We don't know exactly where things might accumulate or drain or anything else. So just please be careful as you get into these fall and winter months. Now, although you probably won't see a cow, I will tell you a cow story. So my son's an adult, right? So when he was little, we went to scouting in Galena. I'm driving home in our minivan, because I had to have a minivan then. And I turned a corner on a farm, and there is a 2,000-pound Angus cow in front of me in the middle of the road. Now, you probably won't see that here, but you might see that going to Kane. And you might see that picker head on a combine in front of you, you're trying to get around and you can't see. Or you're gonna see that tractor because it is harvest season. I know Lester's not here anymore, but he'd be a great one to, you remember Lester to give a lesson on farm safety. But we may not see them in our daily route, but we might see them when we go to other events, especially sport events. You know, and once you get past here, you go to Kalen, it does become very rural, it becomes country. So please be careful out there. Anything else I have to? So Matt's got an update on the parking lot. You weren't here earlier about some changes to that. If you have anything that you like or don't like about it, that goes to him, not me. So we are trying to be mindful too. We put up some new signage. I don't know that if it's large enough. I think it probably works for us. But please be careful when visitors come into our parking lot, right? We've learned where to drive and where to go to the new parking lot, but they have not. So please be alert and just be careful. I know we have an expanded fueling station. I think probably 2 propane tanks are the max that we can do with our property. And I know that changes how we fuel too, where people come and go. So follow the ingress in and follow the egress out. Let's just make sure we're a little careful as we change the way that we do business here. Okay, with that said, I have to go meet some maybe angry principals, maybe not, I don't know until I get there. And then I'll see Dr. Barrett later on today, and I'll tell him that we had some good training today. So I appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Jim, for coming in and speaking with everybody. Committee, did you guys have a process?
I have a presentation, because I'm not sure if we would be completely preemptive today.
All right. So anybody that is running for the committee that would like to come up and say some things about why you're running, whatever, this is your time to speak. Obviously, we'll take turns, so whoever wants to come up.
I'm Mike Heine. I've been on the committee for the last 3 years. I learned a lot of what goes on between the school district and us as drivers. And I think experience really helps out with trying to end up, you're doing a new contract and everything like that. And there's a couple items that I would like to be able to be on the committee again that I'd like to end up going forward with. That were on the back burner last year. So, appreciate your vote.
Not a fancy talker, so. Anyways, I've been on the committee for a couple of years. I think we've done a great job with a lot of our contracts that we've done. We want to keep going with it. We have about 9 or 10 people signed up on the board. That's fantastic. But anyways, yeah, I'm asking for your vote also. Thank you.
Rick is coming.
We love you anyway, Deb. I'm just gonna take 1 second of your time. My name is Deb Marks. Most of you know me. I've been here for a really long time. I've been on the committee a really long time. I keep coming back because I like what I do. I like trying to represent the drivers. And I think my experience that I have driving and being on the committee for so long helps inform the committee and how to move forward. And I'm happy to keep doing it as long as you guys still want me. We want you, Deb.
So a lot of you might know who I am. I'm Rick Crokin. I'm a monitor. I've been with you for 7 years. And I don't believe there has been another monitor that's ever been on the board. And I just want to maybe assist in, as far as being a monitor, maybe help them, new monitors, you know, let them know what's going on and be a voice for monitors. I feel we need that.
We need that.
We need to be represented. Not that we have not been, but I think the voice on the board will make a big difference. So, I could give it a shot. So if you guys are open to having a monitor on the board, I appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Can I just say, we don't necessarily all need to stand up and say something, but if all of the people who are, put their names on the board or candidates could stand up so we can identify who you are, especially for our new graduates.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the voting is next safety meeting.
At the,
in November.
yes, yeah, we'll put the ballot boxes out at the November safety meeting.
At the November safety meeting, the ballot boxes will be put out for voting. You guys can vote then,
It's,
at both meetings. So the voting will be counted after the second safety meeting.
How many are allowed to be on
Allowed to be
on the committee? How many are?
Oh,
five
there's-
members on the committee.
5 and 1 alternate. So 6 total people would be chosen out of the 10. Any other questions? Jay?
Wednesday, where are we supposed to park the buses or the bus?
If you are currently parking outside, yes, you would park them in the U at the middle school, either,
Just pick it.
yep, just pick a school, find an open spot, park there.
Right.
And then once the parking lot's done, we'll get them all back.
So we're leaving them end of day, Matt? Just end of day, leave it there?
Yep, either end of day or like Jim had asked, you guys can leave them there after routes in the AM once everybody's cleared. And then you can run out of there for the afternoon. I know there's probably a handful of you that would openly volunteer to go back to the middle school. So,
What happened with the people who had field trips Friday?
people that have field trips Friday, if your bus is over at the middle school, you could run out of the middle school, or you'd have to run out of one that's in the bay over here. Cause that whole area along the curb and where the current parking is all, they have to seal coat that whole area before they paint it. So you won't be able to drive over there.
If we come back on Friday, and we are doing football, we can bring the buses back here?
You could bring it back here, yeah. But depending on what time you get back, there may not be any, if you parked over at the middle school, there may not be anybody here to get you back to the middle school.
Yeah, that's.
That would be the only thing.
Walking any dogs.
Any other questions? All right.